Hello, welcome back for another video. I figured I wanted to do an F3 rankings video also, not rankings, preseason predictions video also, before the start of the season. And we finally have 30 confirmed drivers as of today. And meanwhile, I think the first practice session is probably in less than 12 hours from now. But so by the time this is being released, there's probably already been a practice session said and done. But I wanted to get this video out and recorded. So don't let this little thumbnail indication really mean anything. This is just the drivers I could actually find a PNG file for, because I did all of the actual presentation and stuff while I was at my day job. I had a little bit of free time, and I figured I would do that there and then record this when I'm at home. So I'm going to quickly run this through. I'm going to do it a little bit differently than I did my F1 video or my F2 video. I'm going to kind of go by teams and then piece it all together. You'll see. I'm trying something else. It's F3. This is going to be the most unpredictable. This is where I'm expecting to be the most wrong out of all of these videos so far, but it'll be fun to review at the end of the season after where are they ending? Monza again? Yeah, let's get into it. Next. Okay. So I am going to start by going by teams, at least for the first few teams. I'll kind of go over all of the drivers individually, and then I'll show you where I'm kind of putting them in the order. So with PHM Racing, they're a new team. They're taking over for Charouz. We have Sofia Florsch, Roberto Ferraya, and Piotr Wisnicki. I might be pronouncing these wrong, but yeah, I figured I would kind of go over the drivers, a little bit of their details, and you can use a little bit of facts and background history, because that's all we can really go off of. Not all of them I've actually watched race before. In fact, yeah, none of these drivers I've actually watched race before, so all I could use was their data provided. So Sophia, she's been in Le Mans, DTM, World Endurance Challenge, and F3 back in 2020. And she didn't really have a lot of success back then. Let's see how she does this time. And Roberto Ferraya, he's done a couple seasons of GB3, a little bit of Asian F3, British F4. Hasn't really had a lot of success in any of them. Apparently, is he part of the Sauber Academy? I'm not too sure if he is. I gotta look this up on my other screen. That's gonna open up in the wrong spot. Oh well, that might be wrong. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked back on some of the older teams. I started putting this data in last week, and I kind of had to create a format, so that might not be right. And then in the third seat for the team, I've got Piotr Wisnicki. Did Freca last year, P35, couple seasons of Italian F4, not a lot of success there. So for that reason of 3 drivers and a brand new team taking over a team that hasn't had a lot of success in the past, and after testing, I slotted them into 26th, 28th, and 30th. And so now that you can see I kind of got all my 30 spots, I'm going to be going over the 30 drivers as if they actually completed the full season. I know there's going to be probably 40 drivers by the end of the year, but I'm going to go and assess as if all 30 of the current drivers are going to the end of the season. And over here I've got my little constructors. So I think as I'm going through the teams, I'm going to have in 3rd through 10th, and then I'll put the top 2 teams in last. So yeah, out of those 3 drivers, I kind of ordered them in this order. Originally, I think I actually put Wisnicki at the bottom, but after looking at testing times, I know we don't want to take testing times too much into account, but Ferraya definitely went back to the bottom. Moving on to the next team. I have Rodin Carlin. I might be mispronounced. Is it Rodin or Rodin? They're kind of new. I think it's Rodin. I've gotten ads for them a lot, but they have Oliver Gray, Hunter Yaney returning, and Ito Cohen returning also. So in their number 1 car seat is Oliver Gray, and it's pretty obvious that he's, at least on paper, the best driver right now. He's at P2 in British F4 and a P7, so only 2 seasons in the single-seater so far, but they haven't been unsuccessful. I think he's maybe jumping up the gun a little bit. Could have maybe done some Freca or something like that. So I think this might be a little premature to be jumping into F3 for him, but he seems to have at least a little bit of promise, so I can understand why he's in the Williams Academy. Hunter Yanni, he's a bit of an odd one. When I was looking up a lot of his stats, it seems like he's done so many series part-time. So I want to see him actually complete a full season. It's pretty hard to judge. He hasn't had a lot of success in what he's done outside of the United States F4, but he hasn't really had a full chance to compete yet. So I'd like to see him get that opportunity. And in the third seat is Ito Cohen, who, well, we've been watching him for a couple years. He is what he is. We already know what we're seeing, and so when I put them in, we'll see the previous standings and then where I slotted them after. So obviously I put Oliver Gray as their top driver, followed by Yanni and Cohen. I think Gray's going to be the top driver, but Carlin is still not a good team within F3, and I think it's maybe a bit early for him, so I don't think there's going to be too much success, at least at this point. I think maybe year 2, if he does decent, if he gets a year 2, he could move himself up the grid a little bit, but I don't think it's going to happen for him this year. Okay, so moving on to the next team. I'm talking about Jenzer Motorsport. The one team that they're not in F2 either, so them and Virtuosi, they're kind of both easy yet difficult to judge because they're just complete separate entities within their own divisions that I actually look at. Because I'm not going to look below Formula 3. I'm not going to talk about FRECA or anything like that make videos about them specifically. But yeah, so looking at Jenzer, we actually have a couple PHM drivers, which is kind of odd that they were signed to Jenzer rather than PHM, yet seeing they're covered in their sponsoring. So that's a little bit odd to me. I have a feeling maybe those like Bedrin and Barnard, I think they maybe have gotten their deals before PHM had their deal solidified with Charouz, I'm guessing. I'm not too sure, but that's the only thing I could really guess based on the sponsorship, because why wouldn't they want their own drivers on their own team? So yeah, let's go through these guys. It's a lot of middle of the road success. Well, it's not bad success by any means. Like you can see like Taylor Barnard here, he just finished P2 in the Formula Regional Middle East behind Kimi Antonelli, who it's a shame he's not in F3 right now. He's so talented. I cannot wait for, I feel like Kimi Antonelli is a lock to get into F1 at some point. But yeah, a little bit of a success, P8, P4, P4, a couple P2s, P7, nothing to scoff at. I think looking at these records, I feel like both of these drivers could have maybe gone to FRECA, and yeah, I feel like all three of these drivers could have used maybe at least a season in FRECA, just to continue the development a little bit instead of rather just jumping straight into F3. So that's why, similar to every previous year for Jenzer, they've never really had a lot of success in F3, even when they had like Yuki Tsunoda on the team. So that's why I put them next in the constructors standings. And within drivers, they are slotting in at P17, P22, and 27. So obviously, out of the bunch of them, I watched a little bit of the Formula Regional Middle East, and Barnard did look good, so that's why I ranked them their top driver here in P17, Bedrin in P22, and Garcia in P27. So moving on to the next team, I've put Van Amersfoort Racing, VAR. So they've completed their first season, and it's a rookie season for them. I'm not too surprised they struggled a little bit, but I think it's kind of hard unless you have the absolute top drivers in F3. You are always going to struggle a little bit. So I think it was actually a really good thing they did in going for Kyle Collette, who seems, I don't know if he left but he's no longer part of the Alpine Academy, which is absolute shame. I think he's a really, really good driver. I just think bad luck and circumstances things haven't really fallen into his lap the way it has for a couple other drivers. I think MP Motorsport is not really a top team in F3 at least, so it was kind of hard to really challenge for the championship in my opinion, like at least where he was. So I feel like it's a little unfair. I think he could have some success this season. Rafael Villagomez and Tommy Smith, there isn't really much to talk about. The only top 10 finish I can see in the history for Villagomez was in French F4 and Euro Formula. And for Tommy Smith, he's like in only top 10s he's had is in Australian F4 and like Asian F3. So really not the hardest series kind of thing. Like especially thinking of like something like Asian F3. A lot of good drivers do go through it, but most of them don't do full seasons. So it is what it is. Let's move on to where I put them in the standings. So looking at the previous arrangement and then slotting them in. I've actually ranked Kyle Collette to finish really well for at least for VAR. I think that's below where he's finished in the past. I think he had finished P8 2 years in a row. So I think he is going to drop down the row a little bit, but I think that's simply because he's moving to a lower team that's not really on him, and he's no longer going to be getting all of the benefits of being an academy driver, where he's not going to be doing that much extra simulator work that would help him and getting extra support. So yeah, Collette in P10. Where did I put the others? Villagomez in P23. I don't see him improving. And Tommy Smith, he's pretty much one of my drivers who I've got right at the back in P29. So the next team, obviously, you can see him kind of going in the constructors order. So in P6 of the constructors for my next team, I've put Campos. Campos. I said Campos? It's weird to say it fast, but yeah, for their team, they've brought back Pepe Marti and added Christian Mansell and Hugh Barter. So again, we see it a lot with a lot of the lower teams, although we're starting to see a little bit of drivers with a little bit more success, in my opinion. Pepe Maria Marti, I think he's a good driver. Didn't have the greatest rookie season in F3, but I don't remember if he did the full season or not. I feel like he missed at least one round, but I think going into a second season is going to be very beneficial for him. Christian Mansell, he's had a bit of success, Euro Formula and GB3, P3 in a couple seasons, and P7 in British F4. So he's clearly got talent. Will it carry over into F3? I don't know about that. I think he's a driver, should have maybe gone to at least a season or maybe 2 seasons of FRECA. And kind of same goes for Hugh Barter, who's clearly had success in French and Spanish F4, like 3 P2s. That's awesome, but like especially looking at French F4, just having 1 year of P2 and then doing a second year and staying P2, it doesn't really show in that high. Like you want at this age, you want a really steep learning curve, and it doesn't seem like he's on it. It seems like he's might be pretty good, but it's just kind of like staying solid for more. Granted, there's only really the 2 years of single seaters to go off of judging. All of this is really prejudging, and I don't have a lot to go on, so please don't attack me in any of the comments, because I can be very wrong on this one. But yeah, each of these drivers I think could have done maybe a little bit more before jumping into F3, but they all seem like they're decent drivers, so that's why I've put them next to my constructors. So looking at the beforehand and where I've slotted these guys in, where do I got them? I got Marty at P11, so I think he's actually going to jump up in the standings quite a bit. Hugh Barter in P15 and Christian Mansell in P20, which is actually a shame of the little bit of the PR that F3's been doing before the start of the season. I really like Christian Mansell as a person. His interviews, his character is amazing. He's going to be someone who's probably pretty easy to sponsor, in my opinion, so he could potentially continue to move on and hopefully has the support that is needed around him, because I know I'm going to be cheering for him this season, I think, in F3. Well, I have a couple drivers I'm going to be cheering for, obviously, but he is one of them. Moving on to the next team who I'm slotting into P5, I've got MP Motorsport. So they brought back, did all 3 of these drivers compete in F3 last year? I know at least 2 of them did. Oh wait, I have the data in front of me. What am I talking about? So Colapinto returns. He had himself a decent season, finishing P9 with VAR. Was he with VAR, I think, last year? So yeah, a team who I'm clearly rating pretty lowly, he had decent success with, and he's now part of the Williams Academy. I think there's actually a couple drivers in the Williams Academy now. Marie Boya, I might be mispronouncing that wrong, hasn't really had too much success, but at least he's gone through a couple seasons of FRECA and did a run in the Formula Regional before coming into this season. Had decent success, and P2 in Spanish F4. He's looking like a good driver. Maybe not a great driver, but he's looking like a good, solid driver. And then Johnny Edgar, who's been unfortunately dropped from the Red Bull program. I think it's tough to judge him because he did miss, was it 1 or 2 rounds last year with his health issues. I feel like that might be part of why Red Bull dropped him. I feel bad because whenever I've been watching him race, it's very, very, very clear. The talent is there, but looking at his track record of the last 2 years of P18 and P12, I think it's just about getting that consistency out of him seems to be the issue. I think if he can put that together and prove Red Bull wrong, he could have a shot at success. But let's move on to where I've put them in the standings now. So looking at the before, where I've thrown these guys are... So Johnny Edgar in P12, Boya in P19, and I've included Colapinto in my top 9. My top 9, I'm actually going to kind of... I'll get to the end and then I'll actually go through them all like individually. I'll still talk about them all within their teams first, but then I'll just like quickly run through, build some suspense, yada yada yada. Yeah, so Colapinto I think is going to be back within the top 9 this season. So I'll have him in order later. And next in the standings, I think, what was it, P4? Yeah, P4, I've thrown actually Trident Racing. I know they've been, a top 2 teams the last 2 or 3 years, but I think they're going to drop a bit this year. They've taken on 3 rookies. None of them are academy drivers, so it's just kind of... I think it's going to be difficult for them, especially looking at all of these drivers' records. There isn't really anything outstanding there. Like... Fornaroli and Bortoletto, yeah, they've had some success in FRECA, and Ollie, is it Gerther or Gotha? Yeah, I know he actually did a couple races in F3 last year, and he did look pretty decent. But I think it's going to be a different team this year. I don't think it's the success of the previous years is necessarily just automatic to carry over. So I think they're going to struggle a little bit carrying 3 rookies. And so that's why I've dropped them down into P4 in the constructors, or whatever they call it in F3. And in the standings, I have slotted them into P13 for Gertha, P16 for Fornaroli, but I've still included Bortoletto in the top 9. I still think Trident is a very, very good team, at least within F3. I just don't see them being the absolute top team anymore. So I still think they're going to have some successes. It's just not going to come as often. So moving on to P3 in the constructors, I actually have High Tech, who you can kind of see who the odd man out is of who was added last to the grid, considering he doesn't have the professional photo shoot stuff done. But yeah, so they have Sebastian Montoya, newly minted academy driver Gabriele Mini, and Luke Browning. So I think it's pretty obvious looking at these results, at least to me at quick looking, who could potentially have the most success here. I have a lot of confidence in Mini, like P2 and FRECA, coming off that a couple years before, a P1 and F4. I like that he did do he went to FRECA and had P7. He's like, I'm going to try it again, and moved up the standings and progressed into P2. So I really liked seeing that. Sebastian Montoya, he's part of the Red Bull Junior Academy now. That's pretty fresh too. He's had moderate success. I don't really see I don't see him getting to Red Bull in the future, so I'm not sure why he's part of that academy or been added, but clearly Helmut Marko's seen something in him and maybe he'll prove me wrong. Luke Browning, he's had he's been very, very successful in what he's done so far, but this is clearly a big jump up for him. But we'll see. Maybe he's clearly proved himself in other things that he's done, so maybe he'll prove himself here in F3 too. I think this is going to be a very good team. It's not, none of these drivers really, excuse me. My ear. None of these drivers are like extreme jump out super potential, but none of these drivers are really like screaming that they don't deserve to be there at all. So I think High Tech is going to have a good year and maybe push Trident for P3. Okay, so where am I slotting them in the standings? Let's look at the before and after. So I've slotted Browning into P14 and Sebastian Montoya into P18, which puts Gabriele Mini into my top 9. I think he's a very good driver, and I like the progression that he's making, so I think he's going to have a very successful season. Which leaves us now with our top 2 teams, and every single one of, like, all 6 of these drivers from these top 2 teams I have within my top 9, clearly. So I'll talk about the teams first, and then I'll go through every driver's individually. So left remaining is, I believe they won the championship last year, but finished second the year before that, is PREMA Racing. They have an absolute powerhouse of a team in Paul Aaron, Dino Boganovic, and Zach O'Sullivan. So all of these drivers have had success. All of these drivers are part of an academy. So let's just go through them all very quickly individually. Paul Aaron, 2 years in a row, P3 in FRECA. So that does worry me a little bit, but it's clear that there is talent. P3 in Italian F4, P8 in Formula Regionals. Dino Boganovic, P1 last year in FRECA, P13 the year before. So he was lower than Mini the year before, but he jumped up above him this last season. That's really good progression. P5 in Formula Regional. I think he did part of the Formula Regional Middle East leading up to it, but I think he only did 2 rounds, and then he came back to Europe to focus on F3. But I want to say he was leading that championship before he left. I'm not 100% certain on that, though. He looks like a very, very good driver for the Ferrari Academy. And then Zach O'Sullivan of Williams Academy has jumped up to PREMA. He was, of course, in F3 last year, finished P11 in the standings. So a pretty good year for him. I can't remember who I think he was driving for Carlin. I don't remember 100%, but yeah. So he had himself a decent year and came back for another one in F3. So I think this could be a good year for all 3 of these drivers. And the other team, who's also has all of their drivers within the top 9, is ART. Now, I don't think their drivers are as experienced or as super jumping off the board, but there is still a lot of success there. Kalen Frederick, P1 in British F3 in 2020. He's done a couple seasons in F3 now. Not the same success, but looking at his testing times, yes, it's not the best to go off of. It looks like it could be really good for ART, which also brings me into Gregoire Saucy, who I think topped like 4 of the sessions, I want to say. Granted, they could have just been focusing on short runs, who knows. But yeah, P1 in FRECA a couple years ago, so there is clearly talent there, even though I think he's one of the older drivers on the grid at this point. But yeah, there's very clearly talent there, and Nicholas Solov going the opposite direction, I think he might be the youngest driver on the grid. He's like 16 years old or something. It's crazy that I'm talking about 16-year-olds. These kids are almost half my age. Yeah, that's insane. But yeah, P1 in Spanish F4. He's only had 1 season in a single-seater. So I think this is pretty eager for him to be jumping into F3. I would have liked to at least see him do like another season of maybe a different form of F4 or FRECA or something like that. I think it's a little eager, but it's very clear the talent is there. P5 and P7 and the Karting World Championships the year before. There's definitely talent, but we'll see how we can do. So I'm going to take a sip of this because my throat is dry. I'm still sick. But yeah, let's get into my top 9 drivers, putting them in order. So I think I've got that. So I think P9 is coming up next on the slides. So in P9 I've put Solov. I think just his inexperience is going to play that part, and I think so. P9 for him. In P8, I want to say I put his teammate Kalen Frederick. He's yet to show all of the success really in F3, but I think ART is going to have themselves a very good year, and for that reason I can see Frederick jumping up into the top 10. P7, I've put Paul Aaron. I think PREMA is still the top team in F3 without a doubt, but between their 3 drivers, I think Aaron is probably the 3rd driver of the list, so I've put him in P7. P6, Bortoletto. Like I said, I don't think Trident is as strong of a team as they used to be, but I think Bortoletto is their standout driver of the bunch, and I think when Trident does have success and clicks it together right, like they clearly have in the past, I think it's going to be Bortoletto of them. P5, I put Zach O'Sullivan. I think he's a good driver, and moving up to PREMA, I think he could be a contender. I think any of my top 5 up, I think any of them could be contending for the championship, in my opinion. At least, that's my opinion. Yeah, I think I just said that. I'm stating it twice. Whatever. P4, put Gregoire Saucy. He's clearly very experienced at this point, and if ART are having the success that I'm currently anticipating, he could contend for the championship and a chance to finally move up the orders. P3, I put Franco Colapinto. I know I don't rate MP highly, but I think what Colapinto did with VAR last season was pretty outstanding, so I think moving into a slightly more competitive team will put him into a chance to contend for the championship. And P2, I put Gabriele Mini. I think I love the rise that he's just had. It looks really, really fast, and I'm very happy that this guy is finally getting a chance to be part of Academy. I felt like he was being overlooked forever. I was shocked that he wasn't part of the Ferrari Academy, considering he's Italian. But yeah, I think he could contend for the championship, and right now I have him in P2, which just leaves in P1, Dino. I think this kid is the real deal. I think he is going to be a Ferrari driver at some point. Then again, I also said that about Robert Schwartzman, so who knows? But yeah, I have a lot of faith in Dino. I think he's going to be very, very, very good, and that's why right now I've got him at the top of my championship predictions. And yeah, we'll see. We will absolutely see. So obviously with all of these drivers in place, that kind of makes it pretty obvious who I've gotten what in order for the constructors. So yeah, I think Prem is going to continue to win, followed by ART, High Tech, Trident, MP, Campos, VAR, Jenzer, Carlin, and then PHM. And yeah, that's kind of really all of it. I don't know what else to really add. I was trying to go through this as quickly as possible, but I still ran on for nearly half an hour. Yeah, it is what it is. So, tell me, what do you think of my order? What drivers are you watching for this season? Where am I completely way off? I know I'm by the end of the season, there's going to be some drivers who only do 1 round or 2 rounds, so I could be very, very, very wrong about this order. But it is what it is. We're just excited to watch some racing finally. And yeah, I'll probably assess this at the end. If you haven't already, please do follow me on the social media. Where do I point? There. Kind of, yeah. So I'd say I mostly use YouTube, and then I'm really, really, really trying to get my Twitch account to 50 followers. So if you have Twitch, please follow me. I'm just gonna keep on talking until it pops up. I think it's next. There it is, at Logan Reed Media on Twitch. So please give me a follow. I play a lot of F1 Manager 22, and then I'm getting things set up so I'll be able to start streaming like actual like the F1 game and racing and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully I'll see you there. Thank you very much.